The winter of 1878 came early to Timber Creek, bringing snow and bitter cold that froze the ground hard as iron. Lucas Brennan was checking his horses in the barn one November morning when he heard something that made him stop cold. It was a sound so faint he almost missed it beneath the wind howling through the cracks in the barn walls, a baby crying. Lucas stood perfectly still, listening. There it was again, a weak, plaintive cry that spoke of cold and hunger and desperation. He followed the sound to the far corner of the barn where he kept hay bales stacked. And there, huddled in a nest of old blankets, he found them. A young woman, perhaps 23 or 24, with dark hair matted against her pale face. In her arms, wrapped in what looked like a torn wedding dress, was an infant. The woman's eyes were closed, her lips blue with cold, but the baby in her arms was still crying, though the sound was growing weaker. Lucas did not waste time with questions. He scooped up the woman and child together, blankets and all, and carried them into his house. He laid them near the fireplace, added wood to bring up the heat, and began the careful work of warming them without shocking their frozen bodies. The woman drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling words he could not understand. The baby was perhaps 2 or 3 weeks old, desperately hungry and cold. Lucas heated milk and managed to get some into the infant's mouth using a clean cloth. The baby latched onto it eagerly, sucking at the cloth for every drop. It took 2 hours before the woman's eyes finally opened fully and focused on Lucas kneeling beside her. Her first instinct was fear. She clutched the baby tighter and tried to scramble away. "Easy," Lucas said, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. "You are safe. You were freezing to death in my barn. I brought you inside." The woman looked around the unfamiliar room, then down at her baby who was now sleeping, warmer and fed. Tears began to stream down her face. "Thank you," she whispered hoarsely. "Thank you for saving us. What is your name?" Lucas asked gently. "And how did you end up in my barn?" "My name is Maria," the woman said. "Maria Santos. And this is my daughter, Rosa." Over the next hour, as Lucas made her warm soup and tea, Maria told him her story. She had come from Mexico 6 months ago as a mail-order bride for a man named Curtis Wade, who owned the neighboring ranch. Curtis had promised her a good life, a home, a future for any children they might have. The letters he had sent to her family had been kind and promising, but when Maria arrived, she discovered the truth. Curtis Wade was a cruel man with a temper that turned violent when he drank. He had wanted a bride who would work his ranch like a servant and warm his bed at night. When Maria had become pregnant within the first month of marriage, Curtis had been pleased at first, but as her pregnancy progressed and she could not work as hard, his pleasure turned to anger. He began to beat her, telling her she was worthless, that she was eating his food and contributing nothing. When Rosa was born 3 weeks ago, Curtis had looked at the tiny baby girl and his face had filled with disgust. "A girl," he had spat. "What good is a daughter to me? I need sons to work the ranch." He had grown more violent, more unstable. 2 nights ago, after drinking heavily, he had grabbed Maria by the throat and told her he was going to kill the baby, that he was going to throw her out into the cold and let nature take care of his mistake. Maria had waited until Curtis passed out drunk. Then she had taken Rosa and fled into the night. She had been wearing her wedding dress because it was the warmest thing she owned, having arrived in Texas with almost nothing. She had run through the darkness with no destination in mind, only the desperate need to save her child. She had collapsed in Lucas's barn, unable to go any further, and had wrapped Rosa in as much of the torn dress as she could, trying to keep her baby warm even as she herself began to freeze. "I thought we would die there," Maria said, tears streaming down her face. "But I thought at least we would die together and Rosa would not have to suffer at his hands." Lucas listened to all this with a growing fury. Curtis Wade was his neighbor, their properties sharing a border about 2 miles long. Lucas had never liked the man, had always found him coarse and cruel, but he had not known the extent of his violence. "You cannot go back there," Lucas said firmly. "I have nowhere else to go," Maria replied. "I have no money, no family here. I am legally his wife. The law will make me return to him. Lucas was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then he said, "What if you were not his wife anymore?" Maria looked at him in confusion. "I do not understand." "Marriage can be dissolved," Lucas said. "It is not common and it is not easy, but in cases of extreme cruelty and danger, a judge can grant a separation or annulment." "But that takes money," Maria said. "Money I do not have." "Curtis would fight it, would make it impossible. Then we will do it a different way," Lucas said. "You will stay here. You will not go back to him. If he comes looking for you, I will deal with him." "But why would you do this?" Maria asked. "You do not know me." "You do not owe me anything." Lucas looked at her. At this young mother who had risked everything to save her child, and he saw something that resonated deep in his soul. "7 years ago," Lucas said quietly, "I had a wife named Sarah. She died in childbirth and our baby died with her. I have spent the years since then alone, working this ranch, existing, but not really living." He glanced at the sleeping infant. "When I heard your baby crying in my barn, something woke up inside me that I thought was dead. A sense of purpose, maybe. Or just a reminder that life goes on, that there are still people who need help, still chances to do something good." "You are a kind man," Maria said softly. "I am a man who has been given a chance to make a difference," Lucas corrected, "and I am going to take it." The next morning, Curtis Wade came to Lucas's ranch. He was a big man with a hard face and cold eyes. He rode right up to the house and dismounted without invitation. "Brennan," he called out, "I am looking for my wife. Dark-haired Mexican girl with a baby. You seen her?" Lucas stepped out onto the porch, and Maria saw from the window that he had strapped on his gun belt, something he rarely wore around his own property. "Why are you looking for her?" Lucas asked calmly. "Because she is my wife and she ran off," Curtis said. "She took off 2 nights ago with my child. I want them back." "Your child," Lucas repeated. "Funny how you call the baby yours when you apparently told your wife you wanted to kill her." Curtis's eyes narrowed. "So she is here." "Where is she?" "Somewhere you cannot reach her," Lucas said. "And she is not going back to you." Curtis's hand moved toward his gun. "You are harboring my wife. That is against the law. You will give her back or I will take her." "Try it," Lucas said, his voice quiet but carrying an edge that made Curtis hesitate. "I know what you did to her, Wade. I know you beat her. I know you threatened to kill your own infant daughter. You come onto my property making threats, and I will put you in the ground." Several of Curtis's ranch hands had ridden up behind their boss, and they looked uncomfortable with the confrontation developing. One of them, an older man named Joe, spoke up. "Boss, maybe we should go to the sheriff about this." "Good idea," Lucas said. "Let us go to the sheriff. Let us tell him about how Curtis beat his pregnant wife. Let us tell him about the threats to kill an infant. Let us see what the law has to say about that." Curtis glared at Lucas, but he seemed to realize he was in a bad position. If this went to the law, questions would be asked, and several of his ranch hands had witnessed his treatment of Maria. He could not afford that kind of scrutiny. "She is worthless anyway," Curtis finally spat. "A wife who cannot work and a daughter who will never be any use. You want them? You can have them. They are dead to me." He remounted his horse and rode off, his men following. But Lucas knew this was not over. Men like Curtis Wade did not let go of things they considered their property, even if they claimed not to want them. Inside the house, Maria had heard everything. She was shaking, terrified that Curtis would come back, that he would find a way to take Rosa from her. "He will not give up," Maria said. "He is too proud. He will come back when you are not here, or he will find some other way." "Then we need to make sure he has no legal claim to you or Rosa," Lucas said. He thought for a moment, then made a decision. "Marry me." Maria stared at him. "What?" "If you are married to me, then your marriage to Curtis is invalid. He lied to you in his letters, was violent and cruel, threatened your life and your child's life. Any court would agree the marriage was contracted under false pretenses. But legal proceedings take time, and in the meantime, Curtis has legal rights as your husband." Lucas met her eyes. "But if you marry me, you become my wife. You and Rosa come under my protection. Curtis cannot touch you without going through me." "But you barely know me," Maria protested. Why would you tie yourself to a woman with a baby? A woman with nothing to offer? You have plenty to offer, Lucas said. Courage, for one. You fled into a winter night with a newborn baby to save her life. That takes remarkable strength. And Rosa is innocent in all this. She deserves a chance at a safe, happy life. He paused, then added more quietly, and maybe I need you as much as you need me. Maybe giving you and Rosa a home will help heal something in me that has been broken for a long time. Maria looked down at Rosa sleeping in her arms. She thought about her options. She could refuse Lucas's offer and try to find another way to survive, but what way was there? She had no money, no skills that would earn her enough to support herself and a baby. She would end up desperate and vulnerable. And eventually Curtis might find a way to reclaim them. Or she could accept Lucas's protection, take the chance he was offering, and hope that he was truly as kind as he seemed. If I marry you, Maria said slowly, what would you expect of me? Help around the house and ranch, whatever you are capable of doing while caring for Rosa, Lucas said. Companionship, someone to talk to. Eventually, if we both want it, perhaps something more. But Maria, I am not Curtis Wade. I will not force you into anything. This can be whatever we agree it should be. Maria made her decision. Yes, I will marry you. They were married the next day by the circuit preacher who happened to be in Timber Creek. The ceremony was simple, witnessed by the preacher's wife and one of Lucas's ranch hands. Maria wore a simple dress that Lucas had bought her that morning, and she held Rosa throughout the ceremony. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Lucas leaned in and kissed Maria's forehead gently, a gesture of respect rather than passion. Welcome home, he said softly. The weeks that followed established a new rhythm in Lucas's house. Maria took over the cooking and housekeeping while caring for Rosa. Lucas continued his ranch work, but found himself coming inside more often, drawn by the sounds of life that now filled the space. He was remarkably good with Rosa. He would hold her while Maria cooked dinner, would walk with her when she was fussy, would make silly faces to elicit her tiny smiles. Watching him with her daughter, Maria felt her heart beginning to soften toward this man who had saved them. One evening, about a month after their marriage, Curtis Wade's ranch burned to the ground. It started in the middle of the night, and by the time anyone saw it, the main house was fully engulfed. Curtis and two of his ranch hands died in the fire. The rest of his men scattered, looking for work at other ranches. The sheriff investigated and determined it was likely an accident, possibly caused by a knocked-over lantern or a spark from the fireplace. But some people whispered that Curtis had enemies, men he had cheated or abused, and perhaps one of them had decided to settle the score. Lucas and Maria learned about it the next morning when a neighbor came by with the news. Maria's first reaction was relief so profound it brought her to tears. She was free now, truly free. Curtis could never threaten her or Rosa again, but she also felt a strange kind of guilt. I should not be glad he is dead, she said to Lucas, but I am. Does that make me a terrible person? It makes you human, Lucas replied. He was cruel to you and threatened your child. You do not have to mourn him. With Curtis gone, Maria and Lucas could have annulled their marriage if they wanted to. There was no longer any legal reason for them to stay together. But neither of them suggested it. Instead, their relationship began to deepen naturally. They talked in the evenings after Rosa was asleep, sharing stories of their pasts, their dreams, their fears. Lucas told Maria about Sarah and the child he had lost, about the loneliness of the years since. Maria told him about her childhood in Mexico, about the poverty that had driven her to accept Curtis's proposal, about her dreams of giving Rosa a better life. You have given us a better life, Maria said one night. You have given us safety and kindness. I do not know how to repay that. You do not need to repay it, Lucas said. But Maria, I need you to know something. What started as an arrangement to protect you has become something more for me. I care about you. I care about Rosa. I want this to be a real marriage if you are willing. Maria looked at him, at this good man who had asked nothing of her, but had given her everything. I'm willing, she said softly. I care about you too, Lucas. I think I have for a while now. They came together slowly that night, two wounded people finding healing in each other's arms. It was tender and gentle, nothing like the harsh encounters Maria had endured with Curtis. Afterward, as they lay together, Maria whispered, "Thank you for showing me that this can be good, that marriage can be partnership and not prison." "Thank you for giving me a reason to live again," Lucas replied, "for bringing life back into this house and into my heart." Rosa grew from an infant to a toddler, thriving under the love and care of both Lucas and Maria. Lucas legally adopted her, giving her his name and all the rights of a natural-born child. She called him Papa from the moment she could speak, and the love between them was as real as any blood bond could be. 2 years after Maria and Rosa first appeared in his barn, Maria gave birth to a son they named Samuel. Lucas held his son with wonder and joy, grateful for this second chance at fatherhood. But he never treated Samuel any differently than he treated Rosa. Both were his children, both were loved equally. Over the years, Lucas and Maria built a prosperous ranch and a loving home. Rosa grew into a confident young woman who knew her worth and her history. Maria told her the truth about her biological father, but also about the man who had chosen to be her real father in every way that mattered. "Lucas saved us," Rosa would say when she was older and understood the full story. "He could have turned us away, could have let us freeze in that barn. But he chose kindness instead." 20 years after that desperate night when Maria had fled into the cold, she stood with Lucas on their porch watching the sunset. Rosa was married now, living on her own ranch with a good man. Samuel was preparing to take over more of the ranch operations. Life had been good to them. "Do you ever think about that night?" Lucas asked. "The night I found you in the barn?" "Sometimes," Maria admitted. "I think about how close we came to dying. How if you had checked the barn even an hour later, Rosa and I would have frozen to death." She took his hand. "But mostly I think about how you gave us a new life. Not just survival, but a real life full of love and purpose. You could have just helped us and sent us on our way. Instead, you made us your family." "You were always meant to be my family," Lucas said. "I just did not know it until I heard Rosa crying in my barn." Sometimes the best things in life come to us in unexpected ways, in moments of crisis that become opportunities for grace. Maria leaned her head on his shoulder. "I was an abandoned bride, freezing to death with a baby in my arms. You found me and gave me everything. How do I ever thank you enough for that?" "You already have," Lucas said. "Every day we spend together, every smile from our children, every moment of this life we built. That is thanks enough and more than I ever expected to have again." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the colors spread across the sky. Two people who had found each other in the darkest moment, who had chosen kindness and courage over fear and indifference, who had built something beautiful from broken pieces. Because sometimes salvation comes not in grand gestures, but in simple acts of compassion. Sometimes a new life begins in a cold barn with a stranger's kindness. And sometimes the family we choose becomes more precious than anything we could have planned or expected. Maria Santos had been abandoned to die, but Lucas Brennan had given her not just survival, but a life worth living. And in return, she had given him something just as precious, a reason to open his heart again. A chance to be not just a man existing in solitude, but a husband, a father, a partner in building something that would endure. That was the real miracle. Not just that he had saved them, but that in saving them, he had saved himself. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of courage, compassion, and second chances. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts on the power of kindness in desperate moments. Your support helps us continue bringing these meaningful stories to listeners everywhere. Thank you for being part of our community.